today. Just to give you a quick summary of the show, I know you can kind of get an idea from there. We're going to be following a crew of Center for Disease Control workers in the Arctic as they come in encounter with a virus, an unknown virus, which is that black goo, I'm presuming. And we've got a few people here to give us a little more insight into the season, including, first and foremost, Billy Campbell, who's playing Dr. Alan Farragut. Next up, we've got Kira Zagorkowski. She's playing Dr. Julia Walker. Next up, we've got Mark Ganami, and he's playing Major Sergio Ballesteros. We've also got an executive producer here today, Cameron Porsande. And finally, we've got cast member Neil Napier, and he's playing Peter Farragut. So I wanted to start off with a general question that anyone can answer. So how is the show going to be formatted? Are we going to meet them right at the base and then sort of go day to day from there? How does it start out?
That sounds like a writer question. We're going to start very briefly at the CDC, but what we'll find is we're going to end up at this Arctic base incredibly quickly. And from there, we'll spend each episode, which will amount to one day, up inside this confined base. The series will span over 13 episodes, each episode being one day. And one of the great things about this format is by the end of the first season, which in real time will be about 2 weeks, we'll have a good sense of what the story is about and where we're going to go forward with it.
Is this format going to allow for some flashbacks maybe into the characters' backstories, or are we going to focus mainly on the base?
I'll take that one too. I mean, flashbacks are a great device that are used a lot in science fiction, but what we're going to do instead is predominantly use sort of delusions and hallucinations. We think that's sort of a unique way to give backstory, and we're sort of excited about the way we're going to do it, because a lot of the hallucinations will stem from the disease. So, short answer is no.
Okay. But we do have a little bit of a backstory that I want to ask Billy about. What can you tell me a little bit about your character, Dr. Allen? And I know he's got some interpersonal issues between him and his brother, Peter. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yes, well, I play Alan Farragut. He's a CDC doctor, and life is just going along merrily when my ex-wife shows up and says that she's also works for the CDC, and says that we have to go to the Arctic to investigate a viral outbreak, and one of the 3 people infected in the Arctic is my brother, my baby brother, sitting at the end of the table, who happily enough has had an affair with my wife. So it's a kind of an effed up family reunion, and it makes for some pretty tense situation. I mean, the situation's tense to begin with, but this just exacerbates that.
It's not you, it was me.
That's true.
I'm just going to ask you, Kira, like, how is that reaction with Julia? I understand it's been 2 years since they've seen each other, your character and Billy's character?
Almost 2 years, yeah.
Okay. So, like, it's
14.
gotta be a frosty sort of first meeting back together.
It is because I haven't seen him since this incident and kind of escaped. But you come back and then there's all this stuff that's been left unsaid, and there's all these emotions still there, but the truth is there's something bigger than us dealing with each other that we have to deal with. So that's what creates interesting story and conflict.
Given the nature of the situation, it's a pretty unique reunion for old lovers. None I've ever been involved in before like that.
Mark, can you talk a little bit about Major and how he figures into the situation? Is he like another triangle part of this love thing?
Yeah, well, when you have these kind of shows with the outbreaks and that kind of stuff, there's always the three components. There's always the doctors, the government, and then the military. So my character, Major Sergio Ballesteros, he's a Brazilian with the U.S. Army, and he's come up to kind of assess the situation as an engineer and figure out the structure and see how possibly this virus has come about and how we can possibly contain it as well from the military side of things. But he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, I'm sure, so we'll see.
What has it been like generally for the cast and also for Cameron shooting in Montreal? I understand that most of it is inside a set, but how has it been? Have you guys had a chance to see the town?
I'm a native Montrealer, so I know it pretty well. Yeah, I just moved to Toronto, but now I'm back home all the time, so I think they're all pretty lucky to come to my hometown and get to work. It's a beautiful city. I don't know what their perspective is on it.
I second that. I love Montreal. I'm in love with Montreal. Yeah, a little too much.
Yeah, sorry. It's been great for me because my husband's from Montreal, so all of my, it's kind of interesting. My in-laws are all there, but he's back in Vancouver, so.
Another trend.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But I love Montreal too. What I love about it is you don't really feel like you're in North America. You feel like you're it feels like you're in Europe. You're in some interesting, unique place, and so I love that we get to shoot there.
I grew up in a little town outside of Montreal, actually about an hour and a half southeast of Montreal, so my mom's pretty excited that I'm closer to home. I live in Vancouver with Kira as well, so it's kind of fun to come
Not
home.
with me.
No, in the same large city, but it's fun. She gets to see her son, and he brings his laundry sometimes.
Cameron, have we gotten a chance to use any of Montreal in the shooting, or is it all on set?
No, not yet. I mean, one of the premises of the show that we really try to use is that the entire thing takes place in this very confined environment. I mean, going back to some of the things that they were talking about with the triangle, it's a funny thing. I've told the story before, but a couple of years ago, I ended up in an elevator with an ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. And while it was only 10 floors up, it felt like the longest elevator ride of my life. And we spent a lot of time trying to think about how we could sort of explore that. And one of the ways is to recreate this love triangle or incredibly messed up family reunion in the same kind of confined environment. So I guess what I'm really trying to get at is we have this viral outbreak taking place in this pot. We have this unfortunate family reunion, and we're not going to let them out. And that's part of the point. There is an element of claustrophobia and tension that will build and build and build until it's sort of unbearable. And that's the thing as writers and actors we're trying to exploit.
Did you ever round up the cast and just put them in a room for a day to just get them into a claustrophobic mood or something?
Oh, that's what today was about.
Did you guys do any research into, this is for Cameron or the cast, into the Center for Disease Control? Did you talk to anybody that worked there to sort of get a feel for what they do? Or to find out, are we safe? Is there an outbreak going to be happening to us anytime soon?
This all happened pretty quick, and then it became a lot of Google and YouTube videos and I spent time researching real scientists, just watching them talk. And you have to add a little enthusiasm because it wasn't as interesting as I thought. But I mean, you get all these crazy scientific words that you have to really make sense of it and make sure that the audience is getting it too, because it's going to be information that they don't know what that means either, but you have to, it's like you're teaching it along at the same time, so I felt like I really wanted to have an understanding of what I was talking about. And then you get on set and you have all these interesting scientific props that you have to deal with right now. And so we have a tech advisor on set to help you figure out how does this type of microscope work and how would I actually use this syringe or how would I, So it's been kind of fun. It's like taking a science class again.
Yeah, we learn a lot just reading the scripts. These guys are pretty smart who write this stuff, frankly.
I'm not certain about that, but I can speak to the larger point, which is, unlike a lot of writers, I'm relatively new to this. Prior to this project, I was actually a consultant and I worked for the World Bank. And what does sort of lend itself to this project is I traveled a lot. I was probably in 100 countries over the last 10 years. And one of the things that I sort of grew to love and I certainly experienced over and over again, was these really remote sort of locations where life exists. I remember when I was a kid, I had this idea that the government saw everything and satellites saw everything, and that simply isn't the case. There are tribes in Africa that have never made contact. There are pirates off the coast of the Middle East, and there are in fact research facilities all over that are completely, for lack of a better word, off the grid. And what I became sort of fascinated by over the years was what kind of people would want to go to these places? What kind of characters would populate a space like this? And that's sort of another thing that we explore within the facility, is the kind of researchers who would give up their positions at Stanford, Yale, and whatever university and fly out in the middle of nowhere to do this kind of research. So while that isn't exactly what you asked, a lot of those experiences and the people that I worked around have informed some of the more technical elements of the show.
And sort of on that, from again, it was kind of late in the game that I was cast in this, and to that question that Cameron raised about what kind of people go up and give up everything to go live out in such isolation, I watched a Werner Herzog film. Cameron, what's it called? Something at the end of the
Journeys to the End of the Earth.
Journeys to the End of the Earth, and it's set in a research facility in the Antarctic. And it chronicles the lives of these scientists who go live in really as far away from civilization as you can get and still be on the planet. And it's really informative and fascinating to see what makes these scientists tick. And it's one of the things I find really fascinating about this project too, is we get to explore that.
Turning it sort of back to Neil, there's this black goo, and I know that you're in contact with it in some form because you get infected. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what is that CGI? Is it makeup? What's going on with the black goo?
It's a makeup, and I every day before work, before set, I show up. It takes about an hour and a half for the fantastic artists to do my makeup. And it's really beautiful to watch it happen. I try to stay awake for it, depending on the call time. And it's brilliant, and it's so, I hardly feel it on me. It's, I don't, it's not very intrusive, which is great. And it's more of a difficult experience for my castmates at lunch, frankly. Especially the first couple of days during makeup tests. I sat across from Kira, and she had to eat like this, kind of looking down and talking to me kind of from under her lids like that, because it was a bit of a shock for her.
I told him, sit next to me. Why are you sitting across from me?
Across from me. But it's brilliant. It's really, I forget I'm wearing it, and then I see myself in a mirror, and it's jarring every time. It's beautiful.
And just to dovetail on that and get back to a question I conspicuously avoided a minute ago, we do have a CDC consultant that we employ with all the scripts. He's a fellow from Harvard, and he's brilliant. And one of the things we strive for is realism in these moments, and part of that isn't always using CG. We try to use practical effects when we can. It is science fiction, and we definitely push the boundaries of what science is, but we strive for realism whenever we can, and when I think about the science when we're writing as a room, back in Los Angeles, what I always try to say to them is, we're 3 to 5 years in the future, not 20, not 30. These things may not be right at our fingertips, but they're pretty damn close.
How do you guys feel that this series differs from other sci-fi series or other things that we've seen about viruses before? Because immediately when I sort of saw the trailer and heard the summary, I went to The Thing, because I was like, well, in the Arctic, there's, an outbreak. How do you think it differs, and did you take any inspiration from any of those other viral sort of movies or shows?
Well, I personally, everyone here that's come to these fan expos, they gravitate towards the space sci-fi, like the Battlestars, the Star Trek, the Star Wars, and those are fantastic. I mean, I grew up watching them, I love them, and that's part of why I was excited to work with Ron and this kind of show. But I think the nice thing about this show is that it, like you were talking about, the realism of it all, is that it is 3 to 5 years ahead of this time, which is also means that what you're going to see is possible. This stuff could happen, as opposed to, like Billy was talking about, zombies and all these fantastical situations that you just kind of look at and you can't really attach yourself to because it's not real, but this all could very well happen, so it's kind of creepy and fun.
Yeah, and expanding on that, you know, when we decided where to place the show, I don't know who in here has been to the Arctic Circle, but maybe a few of you, or maybe none of you. But if you have been there, I would say that it is the closest to being on the moon you can be on Earth. And if you were going to tell a viral story and you put it on the moon, that would be amazing, but it would almost be too far away to be a constant threat to the rest of Earth. But the Arctic Circle, it's right over the hills, and it's close enough to be terrifying, and yet still have some of the elements and the isolation that a space environment would have.
And did we take any inspiration from like any other viral shows in particular, or movies when you were putting together pilot?
I'm a huge fan of the Aliens movies, the first one and the second one. I remember watching it when I was young with my father, and it's still one of my favorite movies, Aliens. And I know it's not necessarily about the virus, but there was something about that type of sci-fi with such great characters and such a good story, and it was so well done. And the amount of fear and how frightening that movie was, I've always been inspired by that. So I like this kind of sci-fi with such great writing and good characters.
Do you think that Julia is an Ellen Ripley type character? Would you compare her to Ellen Ripley?
Nice one. Well played.
Cameron?
You're not going to answer that question, are you?
Just say it.
We look to cast a strong female lead. I mean, I think a lot of us feel like, despite the fact that there are a lot of female characters, we still don't have a lot of strong female characters on television. We have smart, sassy ones, but a woman who could also probably kick your ass. We don't have a lot of that on TV, and when we were looking for an actor to play the role, we thought that there was, for lack of a better word, toughness to Kira that she really brought to this, and that is something we want to explore with that character.
On top of that, something that I love about this character and also the other women that Cameron created is that they're really good female characters. And a lot of times on television and film, when you have a powerful woman, she happens to be a cop or she happens to be a supernatural creature with a weapon, and you know, we kind of turn her into having a bit of a masculine side in a way. But they're just real women in the show, and they happen to be brilliant, and they happen to exist for reasons beyond their boyfriends. They have purpose in their lives. So that's why it makes it interesting, is that they have substance. There's these relationship things that I have to deal with, but at the same time, I've got something bigger than me and bigger than this thing that I want to solve with my ex-husband that I have to do. And that's what I really love about the women that he's created. It's a really good story.
Yeah, and I don't know how many Battlestar fans we have in the audience, but I presume there are some. And I think one of the many great things that Ron did in that series was create strong female characters, both in Starbuck and Six, and I think we're very much trying to continue on in that tradition. So, and he was instrumental in all of that.
I was actually going to touch on that, having Ron more attached to this. Do you feel a huge pressure because he's been attached to these, you know, incredible things like a Battlestar or a Roswell or something that is, you know, so beloved? Do you feel sort of a pressure to live up to that standard?
I had a nightmare one night. This is kind of funny. It was around the first week of shooting, and I had a nightmare that they fired me and replaced me with it was either going to be a TV cooking show host or Katie Sackhoff. And I was like, oh, okay. And I felt like I should tell you guys to go with her, because I don't know about this TV food host thing. It was a really bizarre nightmare, but it felt very real and strange.
I can't see Emerald Lagasse playing your character.
Going back to Billy, you've been on shows before where there's, you know, a mystery sort of teased in the beginning. Like I think of The Killing was one that you were on recently. Do you see this as a mystery that could last over multiple seasons, or is it something that we're going to like see possibly come to a close earlier? How do you see it going? How do you see the future of Helix?
I can see it playing on possibly indefinitely. at least into, you know, into a syndication. But yes, I think there's, I think it's really ripe to carry on. It's you know, the consequences are potentially well, earth-changing, and so it's I think it has quite a few seasons in it. But that's really more of a question for Cameron.
I think that was a brilliant setup, though, so thank you. I guess what I would say is the virus component is an incredibly integral part of the show, but it's really the entryway into our bigger story, which is a mystery, and it's a huge mystery that has consequences for all of mankind. So while the various seasons will involve medical, viral, sci-fi outbreaks, there is a larger overarching story that will tie all of this together, and that's really what we're trying to get towards. And we'll see signs of that even in the first season, and by the end of the first season, I think we'll have a sense of the true scope of our story.
I know you just said that it's not as much about the virus, but doing this show and seeing, like, you know, Neil up in the makeup and being infected, does it wear on you? Do you like go home and think, oh my God, am I going to get infected if I touch something weird or go into contact with something weird? Does it make you paranoid at all?
We worked, you know, the first few days that we shot, we worked in the snow, and I still don't know what that stuff is made of.
They say
bleach. No, it's bleach.
And I still have it in my lungs, but I literally got it. I woke up the next day with a sore throat, and then I got sick, and I've been sick. I'm just getting better. I've been sick the whole first 3 weeks of shooting.
Any black goo?
No, it wasn't. There was no black goo from my mouth, and so.
I wonder why we got divorced.
Anyone else want to add? Like,
I felt infected. Is what I meant to say. I felt infected.
So there's no like germaphobes on the panel. You know, someone that like this was freaking them out. They're looking up WebMD stuff after this.
No, I think we're all pretty cool, swapping sweat on set. I mean, working hard is what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a team.
Some are swapping spit, though. What?
You had to go there.
Can we talk about maybe sort of the environment? In the teaser, it looks very extreme. Like we've got these white walls and stuff. Is that just part of the teaser, or is that like the actual environment we're living in? And are you guys going to be wearing hazmat suits the whole time? Is that constrictive, sort of? As far as, you know, costuming, are you limited to only being in the hazmat suits?
Well, I mean, there are two parts to that question. I think the first part is, one of the characters on the show is the base itself. And as the mystery sort of unfolds, what we come to realize is the base has evolved as the needs of its head scientist have evolved. So that is one look we will see, but we're certainly not confined to it. I know the actors know that very quickly we go into different parts of the base that look radically different. And we're going to play with that too. It's sort of, they try to piece together what's going on. It's what is the history of the space and what does that mean? As for the hazmat suits, you know, they present a challenge unto themselves. I can't speak to how they are to work in. I'll let the actors do that after this. They're a challenge to hear the actors speak when you're sitting behind the director's chair. And what I would say is, I think the hazmat suits really sort of, they show in a very graphic visual way the danger of what they're working with. So we love them. Having said that, we were going to move them out of the suits relatively quickly as their understanding of the disease progresses, and then they may go back into them depending on the situation. But no, our actors are not going to be in hazmat suits, and you will be able to see their pretty faces on a regular basis.
Because they're rubber, and at the end of the day, there's like 3 inches of standing sweat in the foot. It's
yes.
Really,
I have it easy with FX makeup. These guys, like, I do not envy them when they're in those suits. I mean, I might spend a couple of hours in the chair at the beginning, but I just gotta smile and laugh at them a little bit and say, better you than me.
Well, they're real. I mean, the helmets that we use for the suits they're the real deal, and they have these motors that pump air to keep it from fogging up, and those things are loud and they interfere with your hearing of the other actors. So there's all these little challenges, and then in the scenes when you take them off and you have to deal with them, it's fun.
I'm always tempted to introduce various smells into the back of their ventilation system. I haven't done it yet, but
it's a self-contained enjoyment. Deal with your own stuff. I'm so gonna figure that out.
I think that we're going to open up the floor to some questions from the audience. If anyone is interested, you can raise your hand and I will point you out. And then we've got some runners with microphones if you are interested. Anyone?
You
Back there?
I was just wondering, there's so many kinds of these shows, the Arctic virals and Outbreak and stuff. What makes a show different than the others, exactly? Anything that would make it stand out, per se?
What are the others?
Yeah.
I'm curious what shows you're referring to.
Well, like The Thing and then the Outbreak and stuff like that.
That's a good question. I would begin by saying that those are features. This show is going to stretch across seasons, which allows us to explore these issues in a very, very different way. I mean, if you're a fan of The Thing, and I'm a fan of The Thing, I think a lot of the best elements are in this show as well. But we take a left turn pretty early in the series. And it isn't just that the character dynamics play out in a very different way. As I sort of expressed earlier, the virus is really just an entry point, and this mystery that's going to stretch not only over these 13 episodes, but over the course of the series, is going to take us wildly in a different direction.
Just right there.
Is the government responsible for the virus?
I want to know. I think the story is much, much bigger than that. But yes, government people are always bad guys. It's an astute observation. But no, our overarching story is much bigger than that.
Question right there.
Given that it's such an enclosed set, what made you choose Montreal as your base of operations?
That's another excellent question, sir. You know, I mean, whenever you make a decision on where to shoot, there are a myriad of factors. A lot of sci-fi programs, I don't know if you're familiar with the breadth of the sci-fi channel in the States, but they shoot a lot of stuff in Canada. So we had a choice, and quite frankly, I think Montreal was beautiful. We thought the crew was excellent, and we made a decision. It was really as simple as that. But to your point, most of the show was shot in interiors. So no, there was nothing specific about the site that drew us there. So much as just the beauty of the city in terms of living. And also the access to the resources we had, including actors and, again, crew.
the crews in Montreal are really fantastic. I've spent most of my career there. And the film and television crews are really second to none in North America and in the world.
Right there.
Yeah. Does the show have any sort of underlying dark comedy type, like Battlestar, for example, had some episodes where it'd be funny even though they're trapped in space and it's horrifying, or is this just, I'm going to be sitting in my seat biting my nails off?
Well, we hope to elicit a lot of the latter, but I would say that in order to create a good roller coaster ride, you have to have both. And Battlestar absolutely went to some very dark places, but that's what I loved about it. And yes, we're very much trying to go there. I don't know if you recall the first few episodes of Battlestar where they're really on the run. There was almost an exhausting sort of momentum of that. And if you asked Ron, I think he would say that that was unsustainable over the course of the series, which is why they shifted gears at one point. And we will be doing some shifting gears as well. Having said that, the momentum you see in those first episodes is closer to what we're striving for. And we hope to maintain it over the 13 days or episodes of the season. But yes, there will be dark humor. I think we've already gone there.
Right here?
Is there an end game already planned? Do you have a certain number of seasons that you want to go to?
Well, as you can imagine, I'm not entirely in control of that.
Sure.
But yes, we absolutely have an end game. You know, we have a lot of great writers on staff. We have people, obviously from Battlestar, but we have people from Lost. And we try to draw from all of their experiences. And yes, shows tend to go all over the place in the middle, but we absolutely do have an end game, and we know what we want to do with each and every season if we're afforded the opportunity. And a lot of that has to do with people tuning in and watching, so watch, please. It's all on you.
We got a question right down here.
Who's doing the music for?
That's an excellent question.
Justin Bieber. Good city for that, right?
Are you asking about Bear's career? Yeah, we get that question a lot. We love him, and I think he did an outstanding job on Battlestar. We're actually going with a gentleman named Reinhold. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but you should definitely look him up. He's brilliant, because what we're really trying to evoke is sort of a creepy, Kubrickian kind